You are struggling with client retention, lifetime value, you're worried that your client's going to leave you at any second, then this will be a good combo for you to listen to. The easiest way to boost client retention is to get results.
Agencies that are struggling with getting their clients results in the ROI, usually they also struggle to get results for themselves in the client acquisition side.
We need to go from the mindset of being a videographer or an editor or a social media manager to actually being a marketer.
When you get a new client, the expectations you set create the tempo for the entire relationship of however long you work with them, 3 months, 6 months. It doesn't start off in the right way. You're already starting off on the wrong foot.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another podcast. We are joined by myself and Gilberto. Gilberto, how are we doing, dude?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Pumped to talk about CSMs and client retention. Let's do it.
Absolutely, man. So today's topic is going to be all things client retention and how to boost the client retention for your agency so that you can increase lifetime value, you can provide a really killer experience for them, and ultimately grow your business and get more deals as a result, of referrals, all that good stuff. So let's jump right into it. How's that sound?
Let's do it. Yeah, I really like this topic because it's one of those that for me it was in the second kind of run up of scaling from let's say 10 to 50, it becomes even that much more important because you can't really even if you figure out the marketing and sales and you just keep churning clients, it's not going to be sustainable. You want to keep them on as long as possible, especially for those that have listened to our conversation around the authority funnel. It becomes even that much more important to increase the lifetime value, the LTV of your clients. So really super important topic.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was just talking to one of the members inside of Agency U, Austin. We did a long form case study, and he was talking about how because he's been able to set up some of the stuff that we've been teaching it with him, a lot of his clients are asking him to stay on longer because he's only doing 3-month contracts right now. And he's the clients are wanting to sign year-long contracts. And all I did was implement exactly what you guys told me to do. So what we're about to get in today is proven. It's worked for Gilberto and I, and it's worked for hundreds of agencies that we've been able to install these same systems into. So this should be really good. So if you are struggling with client retention, lifetime value, you're worried that your client's going to leave you at any second, then this will be a good combo for you to listen to and take some notes on. That's really the idea of it. So first thing is results. So the easiest way to boost client retention is to get results. I mean, I can speak from my experience. I mean, when I was first starting my agency and as I was starting to get some clients, it was very much, what is it that you need, right? It's the yes man. It's the, oh yeah, sure, I'll do videos for you. Yeah, I'll do graphics. Yeah, I'll do your email. Yeah, I'll do all this sort of stuff. And it wasn't really providing any results to them other than me being a deliverable for them, deliverabler for them, just focus on how many deliverables I can do for the clients. And that just puts us in a super vulnerable position. And we talk to a lot of agencies and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel like my clients are going to leave me. Or if you ever worry about if your clients are going to leave you, the results should speak for themselves and we should be confident in our offer, which is going to provide the results in order to be able to maintain and keep them. So if you're just doing being a glorified freelancer and creating a job for yourself, yeah, it's going to be super challenging to when the contract comes up to be yeah, client, we did this many videos, do you want to continue with us? Or we did this for you, do you want to continue with us? Versus actually pointing to the results. So really the message is just making sure your offer is actually outcome driven, not just output driven, and is set up to provide your clients with a result, not just a deliverable, and having your whole business be foundationalized of that.
Yeah,
Gilbert,
I think a lot of agencies. Yeah, I think a lot of agencies resonate with that because even agencies what you have video agencies that also struggle with this where it comes up I don't know 3, 6 or at the 9-month mark and the client looks back and they can't really attribute any sort of ROI to working with them, and then that's where they lose that client, even though they like did everything that, you know, originally they had talked about with that client and the client's happy with like the videos and stuff. There's not like that ROI element to it. It's just going to make it a little bit harder for them to like stick on, for them to, for the service to have like a stickiness. And so like for me, one of the things that I've always like really made like a focused effort, especially with our CSMs, is making sure that we can drive like not just like wins or ROI throughout the relationship, right? Like throughout the 3, 4, 6 months or whatever. But even in like the first week, we have something called like a quick wins that we do for them. So like for each client, what we'll do is we'll like look at all of their old leads. We'll look at what they have, and then we immediately pop it into Go High Level, and we send out like a campaign that we have already like proven and we've used with many other clients, and that right there gets them like an ROI immediately.
Yeah.
Like it
Nice.
just without like within, for us it takes us probably like around like 30 minutes of work, right, for like the team to put everything in place, upload the list. We already have everything in Go High Level like via snapshot. And within like a couple days, they're already like getting an ROI, making their money back on the initial investment. Same thing even for like Agency U. I think it's like a great example for Agency U. People come in, we have something called the momentum campaign, and it's meant to like drive results right away so that ideally they can make their money back right in that first week. I know like some people, I see it in the Slack channel all the time, like 13, what was it, like the other one? I think you
Yeah,
probably saw
Bill
it,
got like
Austin, like 13,
$14,000 a month in
yeah,
retainers just from the
something like,
Momentum campaign. Ridiculous. Yeah.
yeah, like 13,000, 14,000 first week. It's
Yeah.
crazy. But it's things like that. Like if you can just think of ways to like create results for the, like the long term, that'll generate an ROI. But like think of things that you can do just immediately. And it doesn't have to be like ads related, and it could just be like really organically. Some of your clients that you have, they probably already have a lot of people. They're following them on social media. They're like ready to buy. They just don't know how to use it effectively to like be able to get clients. So that's a really
Yeah.
good idea for anyone listening. Like just find a way to just get them quick wins the first week.
Yeah, speed to result is massive. I think a lot of people probably listening, whether it's like, oh, I do social media management or video or podcast or editing or whatever it could be, which is a lot of people that we work with in the agency space, it can be challenging to be like, okay, how do I provide results for these people? Like, how do I do it? And I think we need to go from the mindset of being a videographer or an editor or a social media manager to actually being a marketer. And with that mindset shift, it comes learning new skill sets. So,
Yep.
I mean, 80% of the people that come through Agency U, we're teaching them new skill sets that they can apply to transition from glorified freelancer, they're really good at what they do, and the clients are hiring them, to thinking like a marketer and positioning themselves as an agency and as a solution and a marketer, not just they're hiring you because you're really good at what you do. They're hiring the process of what you've been able to do, and like the results thing that we teach a lot is like running paid ads, and we have a really simple funnel that video agencies and a lot of agencies can plug in for their clients, and then they can justify the high spend. I mean, Zach and Mike, they went from freaking doing like 45 videos a month for clients to 12 because they've been able to attach results to the actual offer and provide results and make their clients a lot of money. And because they don't care about the video, they care about the results that they're
Yep.
actually getting.
There's usually like that correlation too that I find, like the ones that usually kind of struggle, the agencies that are struggling that come initially into Agency U, they struggle with getting their clients results and the ROI. Usually a very like common thing that's in tandem to that problem is that they also struggle to like get results for themselves in the client acquisition side, because a lot of them are just going off of referrals and word of mouth, right? So there's definitely like a strong connection there between the two, and it speaks to like what Austin just said right now is like it like requires to take to that next level in the agency to like learn marketing and sales, because not only will that like provide consistency for your agency, but then also what you learn, right, what you have like acquired in your skill sets, you can then like have your clients benefit from it and have them stay longer, be much more happier as well, all as a result of just learning another skill set.
Totally.
that'll benefit you and the agency clients.
Yeah. It's looking at your business like a business, not just like they're hiring you because of you
Yep,
or your skill sets. Yeah.
exactly. I
Dope.
think
Okay. Number one, results. And it's really the foundation, right? So the offer, the results, make sure you're providing results for your clients. Look at your business like a business, all that good stuff. Second thing, onboarding system. Why don't you kick us off with onboarding, my friend?
Yeah, one of the things that I learned very quickly is just how important expectations are in the beginning of like any relationship, but like really like especially in the agency space when you get a new client, the expectations you set create the tempo for the entire relationship of like however long you work with them, 3 months, 6 months. And if it doesn't start off in like the right way, you're already starting off on the wrong foot. Even though you might not realize it initially, right? Like it could be just like an expectation we didn't set that, in that first 2 weeks, 3 weeks isn't a huge issue, but it's like one of those things that just creep up and become bigger and bigger. Expectations, definitely one of those things. And so like for my agency, we always create expectations on timing, like when can they expect a result, right? Even if it is like fairly quickly. I mean, usually for our stuff, it takes like probably within 4 days, 3 to 4 days. But we always tell them that because they don't know that, right? How would they be able to know that? We only know it, right? And so if we can communicate it, we'll usually tell them like, with like in that first week, 5 days, when really it's that 3 to 4 days that we'll usually get. But we'll tell them 3, 4, so that we have that extra like little kind of margin for error in case something goes wrong, like technical or whatever. So timing is always one. Quality is another one, and that's more like kind of like lead gen related, because everyone has a like kind of everyone has a perspective on what quality means, and what quality means to like one person is completely different from like another. So we always set an expectation on what quality means, because without that, then that creates another set of problems. And so for those listening, like I kind of learned it the hard way because that was no one really to tell me like, hey, like you got to have a proper onboarding system. You got to set the right expectations on the call. It's something that I just kind of got burned a couple times, and then like I learned, oh, like don't do this. So for those of you listening, like think of what are the expectations that you need to make for your service, right? Whether you're a video agency, website, SEO, like whatever it might be. What are the expectations that need to be had, and the conversations that need to be had in order for them to be like satisfied? Because you could get the same, and I've experienced this, like you get the same amount of appointments for 2 clients. One client is ecstatic, is saying like you're the best agency ever, and they like send you referrals. The other one thinks that you're absolutely horrible, and they all got like the same exact result. The only difference was the expectation that they had, but we control expectations. So that's a very important part of like the onboarding system, is having the right expectations on the call. And I think Austin, you can speak to other part of this, like kind of more like the ops system side of things, like having stuff like automated.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, the thing that we just need to realize, like as agency owners, as any business, is the moment the client checks out or buys whatever you're doing is the moment that they second guess everything and they think, did I make the right decision? Is this going to actually work? All that sort of stuff. So like I learned the hard way from the perspective of scope creep, lack of expectations, like what you're saying, being confused about invoicing stuff, client hitting us up, client not following our process and wanting to do everything tomorrow, and us like succumbing to it because we want to provide a good service and we don't have a formal process. It being chaotic when we onboard a client because we're not unsure on where to actually even begin. We have all these checklists everywhere and everything is done manual, and it feels like that sense of pressure where we want to be able to like do well for the client, but there's so much messiness going on and there's no actual defined process for it. So yeah, I mean, I always say design beats willpower. And if we can have the process for onboarding that sets, like what you said, the tempo going forward, then that's the first step, is to have the onboarding process dialed in. And then secondly is automating the process. And basically, like I mean, I remember when I would sit in my 2-bedroom apartment with Mark, we would get a new client, and then we'd kind of like tense up and be like, here we go, because there's like so many different things that need to happen, like a lot of stuff that needs to happen, and it can be really like daunting and a lot of stuff going on, all that sort of stuff. So what we realized is, one, like every onboarding process was super different because we were doing it manual, and each client was like, we would do their own thing based off of what the client was asking. So what we did is we pretty much automated our whole onboarding process from basically all the salesperson has to do when they close the deal is fill out a form, and that sends the client a contract. Once they sign the contract, then they fill out an onboarding form. Once they fill out the onboarding form, then they book an onboarding call. And now when you're on a call, all you have to do is you fill out the intake form, and then you just say to the client, here's the steps that you need to do in order to start the onboarding process. And it kind of puts the ball in their court a little bit, but also creates expectation and defines like what it is. So we're not like, oh yeah, let's start tomorrow, I can come by and shoot, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, you need to have the process to do it. And then after they're onboarded and actually book a call, like what you said, man, like the expectations and stuff like that is like super, super important. So we'll actually do an onboarding presentation with the client to go through the full expectations of what they can expect, timelines, all that sort of stuff. Because what we hear a lot, and like what I experienced, was like scope creep, people confused about invoices, all that sort of stuff. And on the onboarding presentation, we just go through timelines. Like, this is what we will do, this is what we won't do. Don't cancel meetings. Let's schedule everything right now. All of the expectations that maybe are in your head, but the client has no idea what it is, defined. And yes, it does take a little bit more time, but it's a important pillar to actually defining the relationship and having it like super set up for success. So yeah, that's what, and we'll get so many compliments on the onboarding process all the time.
Yeah. Prevents so many like issues as well. Just like starts everything off on the right foot.
Totally. I mean, I remember when we were just talking to another agency, and he was like, yeah, like clients are so impressed by my onboarding process because it's defined, because it's all that sort of stuff. And before, like, client would want to work with them and he'd be like, cool, let's schedule it right now when we can start. And then it's like no expectations were set, and they show up and it's like not defined. There's no process, and it's just a mess. Like that's how a glorified freelancer operates, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the next step here, so I mean, I think of it as kind of like in phases. The first one being like the client onboarding system. The next one being like the client communication cadence. And for that one there, like at least the way that I've always done it and what I found to be effective is kind of like you said, we have a very similar process actually. Like in the beginning of the onboarding call, like in that conversation, we already schedule out what is the communication cadence going to be like, and what channels are we going to like communicate, how often do they meet. And this is also like tying back into results, because no matter what kind of agency you have, like there is some sort of result that you're driving, even though it might not be ROI based, or maybe it is. Like I learned from my mentor, because I actually initially worked at an agency way back. And one thing I learned from him that always stuck is like, hey, like even if you're doing a good job, like show the client that you're doing a good job, because they might not know that it's a good job, especially if it's something like SEO or something a little bit more technical that the client might not be as like well versed in. They might not know that, hey, everything's going phenomenal, right? Like just from their perspective, they see like, oh, leads haven't come in yet. Like I'm not like drowning in like a bunch of calls, but they just don't know. It's like, actually, like, look, this is actually according to plan, right? Which also ties into the onboarding system. So what we do is we have like a scattered cadence, like tapered, basically, where it starts like at the first month is 1 week. Every week we have a call with them, each client that onboards, and what we'll do is we'll check in manually. It's either through email that we communicate with them, and we'll just check in, because one of the things is like showing them like when they get their first appointment, how to like go in into go high level, how to disposition it properly, kind of going in and having them actually like use like the service, right? Like really have them like use it in full, because if they are confused, they're not going to use it. Then they're going to come back in 2 months and say, hey, this isn't working. So we really make sure like in that first week, like we have a high amount of attention going into that client, because that's where they're still like figuring things out. They got things that they have questions on. So we want to be on top of it, right? And then we'll do 1 week, and then after that, we just taper into biweekly calls. And those calls usually are going to be very proactive. So we'll communicate. If things are going well, we'll show them how things are going well. If things need to be improved, then we'll show them like a game plan on how things are improving. And if something is happening before that client call, then we always make sure that we're proactive in reaching out to them. Because the last thing that you would want to do is like the client reaching out to you with something that they found or something that like they're concerned about. You always want to be like proactive in your communication to where if something's not going according to plan, then you're reaching out to them saying, hey, here's what's currently happening. Here's what we're doing about it. Here's what you can expect. That's a really good framework we like our CSMs always use to make sure that everything's good. And if the client, what I found is like it's very interesting. Like if you just tell them ahead of time and you show the proactiveness, you show them the game plan and what to expect, I've very rarely found that like they would get mad at that. Like they actually appreciate like being in the know. And because we set really good expectations on the onboarding call, like it's not like out of left field because they understand with like marketing, it takes time and there's things that need to be tested and all that kind of stuff that we set as an expectation. So when you have those regular cadences and you're proactive, that's kind of like the big overarching principle with this, then you have very little situations where, you know, it turns into like an escalated situation. So what have you found, Austin, like with your like client communication cadences and all of that?
Yeah, definitely like to your point of front loading the like check-ins as much as possible. Not necessarily check-ins, but like checkpoints.
Yeah.
Because like if, for example, we have a call and then our next call is a month and there's like things going on in between, like, yeah, it can just feel like nothing's getting done. So we'll over communicate from the perspective, like especially in the first month, for example, like we'll do the onboarding strategy and then like a pre-shoot call just to like make sure that they're good, and then a launch call after everything is good. And then after, because that's like what you mentioned earlier, like how you said like tempo, like setting the tempo. Once the tempo is set, then you can go into more of like a monthly cadence. But because it's so new, it's kind of like onboarding an employee. It's like they're not going to get everything in the first week of being a fire hose with a lot of information. But as you start to form those habits and those check-ins and just make sure they're super dialed in, then that's super good. So yeah, onboarding strategy, maybe like a pre-shoot call just to make sure they feel comfortable. And then we actually did a launch call where we would review the edits, like the first round of content with the client on a call, just to make sure like we can communicate to them why we did what we did versus like, oh, here's your videos. And then they tell a story in their head and they're like, this is not what I was expecting. And you can like justify a little bit, like with ads a lot of the time, like ad creative. Like we're having Steve Shea start doing that as part of his process because he just had like endless revisions, and a lot of it was just like lack of communication. So at least in the first month, like over communicating, over like setting that up. I like the launch call. Like after you actually do deliverables, jump on a call to launch everything together and just explain how everything ties together. So that's super good. And then for people doing like content creation, we would do like Tuesday Touchpoint, and we basically just send updates on what we're working on and the status of everything so that the client is just made aware of what we're working on, what's going on. And it was an easy way to have a touch point and just be proactive from that perspective. Cool, guys. Thanks so much for listening. If you guys are curious to learn more about Agency U, feel free to click the link in the description or just go to agencyu.co and you can learn more about how me and Gilberto can help you with some client success stuff. We can plug in all things that we just talked about directly inside of your agency, work with you one-to-one. Got a great team that can support you. And for more content like this, visit our YouTube channel if you're not already on here, and be sure to subscribe on all platforms. And thanks so much for watching. We'll see you all next time. Next one, whatever.